is Jennifer. We're going to start off by adding 1 softened brick of cream cheese to a medium bowl. It doesn't have to be softened, but it's going to make the job of mixing the dip a lot easier if it is. And then you're going to add 1 cup sour cream. Now we're going to add from 3/4 to 1 tablespoon of ranch dressing mix. I make my own. That recipe's to come. Look out for it. And then you're going to add 1/8 teaspoon of each of these: dill weed, garlic powder, and onion powder. This recipe is from a dear family friend, and she uses 1 tablespoon of dry sherry. Because I don't have that on hand, I use 1 tablespoon of Italian dressing, but lime, lemon, anything acidic is what you're looking for. Now we're to the part where it's important that the cream cheese is softened. We're going to mix all the ingredients we have so far together before we add the shrimp. We want to make sure that the cream cheese and sour cream are really mixed in well together before we add the shrimp. Now let's open and drain a tin of tiny shrimp and add it to our mixture. I like to stir it in a little bit, and then I use the fork to press it against the sides to break up the shrimp. Because it's shrimp dip, I do like to leave some recognizable pieces of shrimp in the dip. Now, I like to serve this with scoops, but you can also serve it with vegetable sticks. I have this almost every Christmas. I had it for the first time at our friend's house, and now in our family, it's not Christmas unless there's shrimp dip. If you would like to make this recipe in the food processor, you absolutely can. Just add your shrimp at the very end and pulse lightly so that it doesn't become too gummy. Does your family have any recipes that just make your holiday? If you do, share them in the comments section. We would all love to know. Begin with 1 pound of room temperature Velveeta cheese, 6 ounces of room temperature cream cheese, and 2 cloves or the equivalent of finely minced garlic. And to that, you're going to add 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. I cannot say that. I'm not even going to pretend I can. We're going to begin the mixing process with either a fork or a potato masher. I found that just helps the liquids not fly around. And then you're going to switch to an electric hand mixer if you have one. You're only going to need to mix it long enough for everything to be combined. That's why it's important that everything is at room temperature, because if it isn't, it's going to take a lot longer and be harder for everything to combine. One of the things I love about generational recipes is that they don't always come from your family and that you can sort of build on recipes that you love. This recipe is from my mother's employee from years ago, 40 years ago, probably no more than that. And we've incorporated this into our family. And so it's really fun just to be able to know the origin and where your favorite recipes come from. I'm not sure if you noticed this, but actually it's my mother who is on the screen, whose hands are on the screen. She and I started this channel together a while ago, and she usually is on the side. She's the sous chef. She's sort of make sure all the recipe components are correct, but she recorded this one today, so that's a lot of fun. One of the kind of catch-22s in making sure that you have softened cream cheese and Velveeta cheese is that it really is hard to get the cheese mixture off of the blades. I don't think it's called blades. The mixing element thing of the mixer. And so I think we tried to use a knife at first and then just abandoned it for our fingers. It is what it is. We were the only ones eating it. If you're having company over, wear gloves. Now we're going to line either our cutting board or just our counter with plastic wrap or saran wrap, and you're going to spread the cheese mixture onto the saran wrap. Now, again, one of the sort of side effects of having it be softened is that it's kind of sticky and a little bit hard to spread. As you can see here, probably, having a second set of hands definitely helps in holding your plastic wrap or saran wrap down because it tends to slide everywhere. Once you get the cheese mixture completely spooned onto your plastic wrap, you're going to roll the cheese mixture into a log, or you can also make a cheese ball if you would like to, but this is just easier. So you're going to roll it into a log and make sure that it is completely sealed so that it doesn't dry out. Once you have your cheese mixture completely sealed, you're going to refrigerate it for at least an hour. I would recommend refrigerating it overnight if you can, but you need to refrigerate it for at least an hour because we are not finished yet. We have some more things to do to the cheese ball, and if it isn't refrigerated, it's just too sticky to work with. It's so interesting to me how taste and smell reignite our memory. When my mom was first telling me about this dish, I do not remember having it at all until I tasted it, and then the memory just came flooding back. While your cheese is in the refrigerator, you're going to rough chop 1 cup of pecans. I am sure if you don't like pecans, it would be good with walnuts or almonds, but you just need to rough chop the equivalency of about a cup of pecans, and you're going to unmold or take your cheese mixture out of the plastic, and you're going to roll it in the pecans and sort of pat the pecans into any opening or empty space on the cheese. Now, as you can see, we ended up needing more nuts. I think that's because we made a long cheese log instead of a cheese ball, and so we had more surface area that we needed to cover. But whatever you think you would like or your company would like, if you don't want to have it completely covered, don't worry about it. But we rolled and patted the rest of the nuts in, filling in as much of the sort of naked cheese space as we could. I would recommend, if you have time, once you've completely rolled your cheese and the nuts, to put it back in the refrigerator, just loosely covered, for 45 minutes to an hour, just to let it firm up a little bit. That'll make it easier to serve, and you can serve it with crackers or chips, whatever you have and whatever you like. Have you ever eaten something and had a lot of memories come rushing back from that dish? If you have, we'd love to hear about it in the comments section below. It's so interesting. Welcome to Pope's Plate. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. Today we're going to be making stuffed mushrooms. We're going to start with our pan on the stove over medium-high heat, and we're going to put 1 pound of sausage into the skillet. So while this recipe is newer to my family, about 20-25 years, it is something that I have started making anytime we have a party or a reception. I got this recipe from my friend Lynn, who got it from someone in her family, and so it's really fun to see recipes continue through friend groups and through other parts of the family. So we're going to continue to mix our sausage until it is cooked all the way through. You can, well, no, I'm not going to say that. You need to make sure it's cooked all the way through, even though it's going to cook in the oven, because pork is really dangerous if it's undercooked, especially in sausage. Once your sausage is cooked fully to your satisfaction, you can either drain it or you can put a paper towel in there and sort of press it down to absorb as much of the oil and grease as you possibly can. And you're going to want to work quickly, because in this next step, you're going to want to put warm sausage into the mix. So let's go on to the next step. All right, to a medium-sized mixing bowl, you're going to add 1 block of hopefully, preferably room temperature cream cheese. If it isn't room temperature, it's okay because the sausage is warm. It's going to make it a lot easier to mix if it's room temperature. Mine was not quite room temperature, but it had been out of the refrigerator for a while, so I kind of was in the middle. Now, once the cream cheese is in the bowl, you're going to put the warm sausage on top of it, and then you're going to add a pinch of salt and pepper. This is really to your taste, or as they say, measure with your heart. I don't like a lot of salt in my food, but I like a lot of pepper, and so it's really completely up to you. So sometimes, like now, I'll add a little garlic salt to the mixture, especially if I get mild sausage, because it just gives it a little bit more flavor. It's completely optional in my mind. There's never enough garlic, but it's completely optional whether or not you want to add that. And then you're going to add about a cup of breadcrumbs. Now, I am eyeballing this a little bit, and so mine may have more or less, but the recipe calls for a cup of breadcrumbs to each pound of sausage. Okay, once your stuffing mix is completely mixed through as well as you can, then you're going to set it aside, and we're going to want to stem and clean about 2 packages. Just use as many mushrooms as you have filling for of mushrooms. Make sure that you wipe them off with either a mushroom cleaner or a paper towel. You're not going to want to use something wet because of the way mushrooms absorb liquid. And then you're going to use a small or medium-sized spoon and spoon the stuffing into the mushrooms. And you're going to want to kind of have heaping spoonfuls. By the way, because my pan that I browned the sausage in was already dirty, I just sort of used that to scrape any of the dirt from the top of the mushrooms. So again, we're going to put the mushrooms on a baking sheet, cookie sheet, but you may want to pick something that has taller sides, because mushrooms obviously are round on the top or the bottom in our case, and they move around a lot. Now finally, we're going to put our stuffed mushrooms into a 425 degree preheated oven for about 25 to 30 minutes. You're going to want them to be a little golden brown on the top, as you can see here. I really hope you make this and that you love it as much as we do. Bye. Thanks for visiting. Before we begin, I wanted to show you a little behind the scenes. What you don't see is every time we are cooking and recording, Charlie is right off the screen hoping I drop something, which I usually do. Today we're going to be making our 4th of July pizza dip. Obviously you can use it anytime, but we're making it for 4th of July. We're going to begin with 1 block of softened cream cheese. We're going to spread the softened cream cheese on a plate, kind of like you're icing a cake. You want it to go as far and as close to the edges as possible. If you don't have time to soften your cream cheese, you can still spread it. It's just going to be more difficult. Now we're going to spread what I would estimate to be about a quarter cup of cocktail sauce, just enough to cover the cream cheese pretty liberally. And you can also just, depending on your taste, use as much as you'd like. This is an appetizer that I remember having when I was little, especially around 4th of July. My grandmother's neighborhood did a 4th of July parade, and we had a really fun 4th of July parade on the bicentennial. And when I ate this today, it just reminded me of my childhood. It reminded me of 4th of July, and it reminded me of family. Now we're going to rough chop 6 to 8 large cooked shrimp. It really depends on the size of your plate. You can also use drained, canned, tiny shrimp. It just depends on what you have on hand. Now go ahead and evenly, or as evenly as you can, distribute the shrimp on top of the cream cheese and cocktail sauce. Your goal is really to just make sure that there's a little bit of everything in each bite. Next, we're going to seed and chop 1/2 to 1 large tomato. I love tomatoes, so I tend to use more, but it's just whatever your taste is and the taste of your family. My knife is not as sharp as I'd like for it to be, and so I would typically make the slices of tomato a little bit smaller, but this will work. Now let's chop 1/2 of a green bell pepper. You can use any color bell pepper that you want, but I like to use the green because it contrasts with the other colors that are in the pizza dip. So I always use green, and I don't like a whole lot of pepper, and so if you want more, you can use more, but I used 1/2 pepper here. Now let's finely chop 2 green onions or scallions. Again, my knife is not as sharp as I'd like for it to be, and so I would typically cut them a little bit smaller, but any size will work. One of the great things about pizza dip is that if you don't like some of the ingredients, you can really use anything. This is my family's recipe, but I think it would be really good with sausage or fried sage leaves. There's just such a variety of things you can do with this recipe with just the cream cheese base. All right, let's finish the remaining assembly of our pizza dip. You're going to add 1/4 cup drained black olives. Again, use as much or as little as you'd like. Now let's add the rest of the vegetables, the tomato, the green pepper, and the green onion or scallion. Distribute it evenly across the top of the pizza dip. Are there any dishes that your family associates with summer holidays, specifically Independence Day? If there are, let us know in the comment section below. The other thing that I always associate with any holiday in my family is my grandfather's potato salad. We're going to make a video about that soon. You're going to love it. Now, let's finish our pizza dip by topping it with shredded mozzarella cheese. I would say that we used about 3/4 of a cup on our pizza dip. This pizza dip will be a great addition to any 4th of July picnic or party that you're going to. It's an easy, no-cook appetizer, and it tastes like my childhood. I really hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for visiting. Is to very finely mince 1 clove of garlic. This garlic will not be cooked, so you want to make sure that you are making the mince incredibly fine so that you don't bite into a really big piece of raw garlic. Now we're going to be chopping up some fresh dill. I usually use about a teaspoon if it's fresh, maybe a little bit more if it's dried dill weed. I forgot to mention that we were adding the garlic and the dill to a bowl that contains 1/2 block of softened cream cheese. To our bowl, we're going to add the juice of half a lemon. Our lemon wasn't super juicy. I don't think I remembered to roll it before I juiced it. That makes it a little more juicy. You can also microwave it for about 10 seconds. Now to the bowl, we're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of coarse ground pepper and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Stir everything very well to combine and set aside for the flavors to meld a little bit while we cut up our cucumbers. Now we're going to slice 1 English cucumber. English cucumbers are preferable because they don't have as much liquid in them. But I guess if you want to use a regular cucumber, you can, but it's definitely not going to hold up to the toppings as well as an English cucumber will. Here's where things get a little complicated for me, not for the recipe. I got a kind of smoked salmon that I'm not used to using, and it didn't peel apart very well, and it also didn't slice very well. So I ended up just tearing pieces off of the salmon, which worked out pretty well. You don't need really big pieces of salmon for this recipe. As you can see, I tore off pretty small pieces, cut pretty small pieces, and you're going to put those directly on top of the cucumbers that you have already sliced on your platter. Next, we're going to top the salmon cucumber bite with our cream cheese mixture. I ended up eventually using my fingers because it was just easier. I promise my hands were clean. As long as your hands are clean, I think it'll be fine. And it's probably easier, but you do you. You might also choose to put the cream cheese mixture on before you add the salmon. That might be a little bit easier. Either way, it all ends up in the same place. So once you have the cream cheese on top of the salmon mixture, you're going to top half of them with a small sprig of fresh dill weed. I also topped the other half of our cucumber salmon bites with quick pickled red onions, and I somehow deleted the footage. I'm not sure how I did it, but I did. And so you'll see in the final picture and in the thumbnail that there are some pickled red onions on the top of part of them. They are really good and give a really contrasting flavor to just the dill weed. Unless you're having a big dinner party or taking this to a large party, you're probably going to have some salmon and cream cheese mixture left. Put it in a food processor with a little bit of Dijon mustard and a little bit of mayonnaise, and you're going to have a fantastic salmon dip or salmon pate. If you make this dish, let us know in the comments below how you liked it. Thanks for watching. Thanks again by chopping 1 large shallot or 1/4 of a medium red onion. Everything that we cut at the beginning is going to be put in a food processor. We're going to begin by peeling, then seeding, then chopping 1.5 to 2 cucumbers. I don't use English cucumbers for this recipe because I find that they're a little more bitter, but you can use whatever you want. You're also going to notice that I'm seeding into a bowl. I'm only doing that because my dog loves cucumbers, so I was saving the insides for him. Once your cucumbers have been completely seeded, you're going to very rough chop them and put them in a small food processor. And then I blend them in that food processor and I spoon the cucumber onion mixture into a paper towel lined strainer over a bowl. That lets a lot of the liquid drip out so that our dip is not super runny. Allow the cucumber mixture to drain for 10 to 15 minutes, and then we're actually going to get more liquid out by squeezing it. And you're going to want to reinforce it with paper towels, a couple more paper towels so that it doesn't break when you're squeezing the remaining liquid, or as much of the remaining liquid as you can, out of the cucumbers. Once you've gotten as much of the liquid as you can out of the cucumber, you're going to scrape it into a bowl. Into the cucumber, you're going to add the juice of 1 lemon or 1 teaspoon of lemon juice. Feel free to use a juicer if you have one, but you can also roll the lemon under your palm to get the juices a little bit looser, and you can squeeze it into the cucumber mixture just using your fingers to catch the seeds, because that would be terrible to have seeds in the cucumber dip. When I spent time in Iraq, I lived with an Iraqi family, and we didn't have any running water or any electricity. It was still just a fantastic experience. But the mom in the family asked that we all help out in the kitchen. We take turns since there were so many people there. And this dip is one that she taught me how to make and that I have made as often as I can for the last 20 years. Now let's add 1/2 to 3/4 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of coarsely ground pepper, and then you're going to go ahead and mix that together so that you don't get any really salty places when you mix in the sour cream. To complete our dip, we're going to add 16 ounces of sour cream. When I was in Iraq, we used a kind of a sour cream that she made with sheep's milk and vinegar. But I'm just going to use either sour cream, or you can use Greek yogurt. I really like sour cream. You're going to go ahead and mix that well, and then you're going to add about a teaspoon of fresh dill. That really sets it off, enhances the flavor of the cucumber. It's really good. Our experience in Iraq was many years ago, but one of the things I remember and cannot replicate is the amazing knife skills that the women in the family, because they did a majority of the cooking, had, because they had no electricity, and obviously they have a skill far superior to what I have. I don't think I could get the cucumber that small, but they did, and it was really fantastic. And we had ours with a homemade pita or homemade naan bread. I really prefer naan bread, but any kind of bread or cracker or scoops or chips or anything that you and your family really like would go great with this. One thing I realized that I did not record somehow is I also put in 1 clove of garlic. I put that in the beginning into the food processor, so it doesn't really matter how finely you mince it. You can also use 1 teaspoon or tablespoon, however much garlic you like, of garlic powder. If you have found a recipe that you absolutely love in your travels, let us know in the comment section below. There are 2 or 3 things that I have discovered in my travel that really have kept a place in my recipe rotation. And if you made this fantastic cucumber dip, let me know. I'd love to know how you like it. Put it in the comment section below. Thanks for visiting Pope's Plates. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Click the notification bell so that you'll know when we have new videos available. And make sure you subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Until I see you again, let's get cooking!